In a recent video, I introduced to you one of the most illustrious 19th century editions, namely the edition Carl Czerny made of almost all keyboard works by Johann Sebastian Bach. This edition was considered a long time to be authoritative. And let me put it away because it's very heavy. Even Frédéric Chopin painstakingly copied fingerings, dynamic indications and articulations from the Czerny Bach edition. But also, did he copy the tempo indications Czerny gave? Of course, we should position editions like this one in the context of its time, certainly on the field of articulation and fingerings, I'd say. But it is only in our modern times that the very precise tempo indications Czerny gave, and quite frankly all metronome numbers of that period overall, are considered not worthy of our time. Indeed, taken literally, these metronome numbers seem to be often way beyond any human reality. But instead of looking to the obvious solutions, musical society, not to say establishment, tend to feel better accepting broken metronome theories than to look for the point we're missing in stories like this one. In that first video on Czerny Bach, I made a comparison of about 10 recordings of Bach Invention No. 1 in C major. We compared the tempi of those musicians with the tempo Czerny gave. And surprisingly, or not, reading the metronome markers we do today in so-called single or half beat, all musicians were totally disconnected from what Czerny apparently had in mind. Even the idiot-like tempo of Valentina Lisitsa was still 90% below Czerny's tempo. Lisitsa, an accomplished virtuoso I'd say, writes she pushed herself to the limits here, but yet, noting she's still so far from what Czerny had in mind for a piece he described as easy, is not raising any question marks. Somehow, that mysteriously broken metronome story seems to put all our consciences safely asleep. Well, that might be convenient, but it doesn't change the facts. Applying the historical metronome practice, the so-called whole beat metronome practice, or WBMP if you want, where the metronome ticks indicate the subdivision of the note value of the metronome mark, similar to the way our youngsters learn to beat time. Magically, almost all performances of that first Bach invention became very close, if not spot on, the tempo Czerny had in mind. It seemed to me a nice idea to continue these comparisons in a series of videos, and assuming you have nothing against this idea, let's immediately jump on invention number 2. I will give you now an overview of 16 recordings of the C minor invention, including my own, that I made 3 or 4 years ago without even thinking of checking Czerny. It was long before my collaboration with Lorenz Gradient, so my dog ages, so to speak. I also include some duet versions for 2 violins or violin and cello that popped up in YouTube search. So without further ado, arranged from the slowest to the fastest, here they are. So similar to the Invention number 1, it is again Valentina Lisitsa who stands out here as being the fastest performer. But contrary to the C major Invention, she appears to be more disconnected from the rest here. In the C major Invention, there were still a few pianists that filled in the gap between the whole beat, so to speak, though they certainly are not aware of the fact they in fact are playing according to the WBMP and her performance. In this invention, Lisitsa is clearly the exception. Before I unveil Czerny's tempo to you, let us take a moment to compare Lisitsa's version with that of Tatiana Nikolaeva. Their tempo relate in a proportion of 1 to 2. So it is a unique opportunity to let you experience the enormous impact such tempo differences have on a musical composition. So, and now we add Czerny's tempo to the pile of recordings. And there you have it again. With 126 for the quarter note, he seems to confirm again strongly the kind of lunatic he was, taking this piece to a tempo that empirically can be proven to be making no sense. That Lisitsa's tempo is already on the limit of what's possible, she writes herself in the notes under that recording, and I quote, "Bach wrote 2- and 3-part inventions as an exercise for aspiring keyboard players to perfect one's technique and touch. Since any exercise is supposed to be difficult and push it to the limit, I did just that. This way, they ain't any easier than some of Chopin etudes." End of quote. No need to tell that, with all genuine respect I have for Lisitsa, both as a player and as a person, what she writes on the true goal of the inventions is not what Bach had in mind. She might be a little bit more careful in claiming this as an objective fact. But it's how she personally sees this music, merely as a technical exercise that one must push to the limits. Though I personally would not label masterpieces like this as a technical exercise only, Lisitsa's position gives us a unique tempo ceiling as well. As she describes herself, the 112 for the quarter note is her limit. And let me be clear on the fact that tempo will be the limit for most, if not for all of us. He or she who thinks has a better and more accomplished technique than Valentina Lisitsa should report for duty. And yet, Czerny writes 126. And apparently Chopin had no problems with that tempo. Lisitsa's 112, digitally converted to 126 in single beat, sounds like this. So what do we miss? The WBI, or the whole beat insider, already can guess what's going on. But let's return to our overview and put some percentages next to the tempi. If Czerny's tempo were to be read as single or half beat, the way we read metronome marks today, we see that not a single player is within a 10% range of the 126. Worse even, if we consider the Gieseking tempo also to be 40% off, 15 out of the 16 recordings would fall under the category of being almost half too slow compared to what Czerny had in mind. And so, what happens when considering Czerny as a whole beater? Not too difficult to imagine. Let's have a look. 8 recordings out of 16 suddenly fall within a 10% range. 2 recordings even spot on. Then we have 2 recordings on the slow side of the table that fall within 20% range. On both sides of the spectrum, we have 2 recordings that are 30% off And gold with 37% to the slow side and Lisitsa with 78% to the fast side close the row. If we make an average of all 16 tempi, always interesting to do and something that statistically speaking should have some value, we see that even including the Lisitsa tempo, we end up exactly in Czerny's tempo read in whole beat 63. So the winner in the keyboard category this time is one of the greatest players of all time, seriously, Wanda Landowska. She exactly matches the Czerny tempo in whole beat. So again, while looking at simple comparisons like this, it wonders me always why people have so much trouble asking the right questions and prefer entering that gigantic jungle of mystifying smoke instead. But the facts and figures are pretty clear here, I believe. Or we play Beethoven, Chopin and many others way too fast, since they were whole beaters. Or we have to speed our beloved Bach up, far beyond the limits even of someone like Valentina Lisitsa is willing or able to do. There is no in-between here. You cannot have it both ways. So yes, we see also proof that at least part of the Bach tradition hasn't changed that much. So our younger generation now is doing its best to also introduce warp speed to Baroque music, but still, it gives us the possibilities to reflect on how the historical evolution and performance practice of Bach's music might have been different from music of, let's say, Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, Chopin and so many others. And of course, we can never generalize. Gold, for instance, is here on the slowest side, but might outperform Lisitsa even in speed for some other Bach pieces. But the statistical average, at the minimum, proves that we have a duality in Czerny's metronome numbers. A duality between his Bach numbers that we find insanely high and his Beethoven numbers that we think are just a little bit above what we would like them to be. It very well could be our musical taste that has evolved differently for Bach as for all the others that is misguiding us here. In short, as I said before, to me, the Czerny Bach edition and certainly the edition he made for the Invention, Symphonias and 6 small preludes are an extremely strong case for proving the whole beat metronome practice historically correct. Experiment with this tempo yourself. You'll find the original tempo of Czerny here in the description box of this video. Be aware that later editions claim to give the Czerny tempi but instead altered those without mentioning. And just a side remark, how unimportant we find Czerny today, this edition, you will not find it on IMSLP. That's a clear sign of our time. So that was it for now. I hope this was helpful. If it was, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to hit the bell as well, and help us continue making these videos for you by becoming a member of our community at patreon.com. Link below and in the description box. Thanks for watching and see you soon again.